Piecewise function is a function that has different possible calculations based on what's being entered. And so here's kind of what a piecewise function would look like. It'll be written in function notation, but when you write it, you're going to get a combination of equations to use depending on what domain you are entering from. So the equations may be written in this fashion. So it's going to cover any number. And so it will cover any number that you have, generally. The difference is, depending on what you're evaluating, that will dictate which of these functions that you will test it into. Okay, so if I ask you to evaluate this when x equals -1, 1, and 3. Okay, so if this is what you're looking at, the way that you would enter these is, let's say we test -1 first. F of -1, so it's still in function notation. What you're going to do in these piecewise functions is you look for which domain does this fit into. So -1, does -1 fall in the first, the middle, or the bottom? Where does the value -1 fall? Is it less than 0, between 0 and 2, or more than 2? It's less than 0, right? So what you will do then is you will evaluate it in that function. So you'll take that equation, replacing the x with this placeholder of -1, and you'll evaluate that. So you get -2 plus 3. So your value winds up being 1 when you're evaluating when x is -1. What about when x is 1? Now, which of these equations or functions will we use, the top, middle, or bottom? 1 falls in the domain of the second one, from between 0 and 2. So what is the value when f is 1, or f of 1? Just 2. It's just this function right here. And then finally we test f of 3. So where is 3 going to fall, the top, middle, or bottom equation? Bottom equation. So you'll plug that in, a negative, your placeholder, replace it with the variable, or replace it with the constant 3. And so you get -3 plus 1, which gives you an overall value of -2. Okay, now, what happens if I had asked you to evaluate f of 0? Is that going to fall in the top or the bottom? Or will there be two answers? Because this is a function, there's never going to be an overlap, so you'll never have two different answers. Okay? Each input will yield one and only one output. Okay? So does the value x is 0 fall in the top or the middle? It's in the middle because of this less than or equal to. It has the equal to here. So when you evaluate this, you get a 2. What if I asked you to evaluate f of 2? Is this going to be evaluated in the middle or the bottom? Again, just make sure that you see it's x is greater than or equal to 2. So when it equals 2, you'll use this bottom one. So -2 plus 1 would give you your evaluated function. Okay. This is the only thing from this section that we are going to do. We're not going to graph it. We're not going to talk about any of the other relationships. And we're simply going to evaluate when x is a specific number. Are there any questions?